All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, music, go.
Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Velen's Chosen. This week, we are coming at you with episode 144, and we're going to be talking about the People's Shaman even. If you guys don't catch that reference, Grant's going to be letting you guys know, but yes, that's right. We're talking about even Shaman this week, and the reason it's called the People's Shaman is because we ain't got nobody's name on this list. It's just from Hearthstone Replays. Special thanks to Wicked Good for doing a lot of work on this list. Also, grats to him for hitting Legend with it on his climb. But let's meet our other hosts and not talk about the people in the community. My name's Rob, and we have a lot of nice weather going on here in Japan this week. Let me tell you, it's been beautiful. When it's not raining, it's great. And when it isn't raining, it's hot. Speaking of hot weather, Eve had some crazy stuff going on in her neck of the woods, and air conditioning is not working or something. What's up, Eve?
Well, it's because we're recording. My air conditioner is sitting like right there. So if I turned it on, that's all you would hear instead of, my lovely voice. So, and then I was sitting here in my like sundress and realized that Twitch cuts me off like right where the neckline is. So it would look like I was sitting here wearing no clothes. So I had to put a sweater on. And now I'm just dying. So that's enough about me.
Eve getting his banned in 2018. You heard it here first, folks. We got Grant coming in Texas in the next hot neck of the woods. What's up, Grant?
Coming in seemingly less hot than in beautiful British Columbia. It's been 88 degrees today, which is actually pretty nice down here in Texas. 88 degrees sounds hot for people in the north, but down here it's like, hey, that's
because
not
you need
too
to
shabby.
translate it. Like if it was 88 degrees Fahrenheit. No, wait a minute. Celsius.
Oh, that'd be death. Yeah.
Yes, right?
You'd be a boiled lobster.
I'm like, what actually is that? Because my brain could not understand.
I'm sorry, I don't know
the
what
surface of Mercury on a good morning.
It's that number times 5/9 or 9/5 or some other equation that I can't remember.
Like 32, maybe?
It would be like in the 30s easily.
All right, that's hot.
100 is 40 degrees
Pretty
Celsius
hot.
to give you an idea. Somewhere around
Okay.
106 or 100 degrees Fahrenheit is 40 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
That seems pretty decent.
Well, during the summer, it gets like 100, 102, 103. Like,
yeah, it's
average
40,
down
41
here, so.
Celsius in Texas during the summer. But to give you an idea where I'm at, I think we're at like, I think we broke, we were between 27 and 31 this week, Eve, for Celsius. So it's been pretty toasty.
Okay, yeah.
So upper 70s, lower 80s max this week. But it's...
We call that comfortable.
Well, the difference here that I've been finding on our weather podcast, Velen's Chosen, the temperature here has been pretty sticky. It's very much Florida-esque. So if you have 70 in Florida versus 70 in Texas, you feel nasty. Okay.
oh, hang on now. Down where I live in the southern part of Texas near the Gulf.
So
like
you
it
are
is
by
as
the Gulf.
humid.
Yeah.
It's like your land. It's like just like saturated.
It's
you walk
the
outside and
armpit
it's
of
like a
Texas.
sledgehammer smacking you in the gob. So
I want to
Well,
keep
I don't
all
talk
of my
much
gloves.
about where I live, but I live in wine country. I live in like, it's arid. It's desert-like here. So it's really hot, but it's like a dry.
Smells like
so it's
grapes.
not... Yep.
Okay, let's
we
keep
all
going.
just
I wanna live in
sniff, and
British
it's like
Columbia.
having a glass of wine in the morning. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, speaking of wine, let's talk about something not wine. Let's go to Hearthstone. Shall we?
Beautiful.
This is how you guys wonder how long
I'm in
our
awe.
show goes to like 2 hours. This is exactly why. We can talk about weather for like 6,000 years. All right, let's
Weather
go
update.
to some Hearthstone news, which is only one thing. And I'm not going to play bumper because it's only one item. So we have Rise of the Zombeasts. Eve, Grant, did you guys play this? How was it?
I feel like
Was Rexar
it was
jealous?
slow. right? Did that not feel kind of slow to you? Like long games
Yeah.
and like cuz every turn somebody's using their hero power, right? So they're sitting there looking at their 3 cards and then they're looking at their other 3 cards, and as much as I love playing Spell Hunter, you would think that I would like this. But when every opponent is also Spell Hunter and they're also using their hero
You're
power
just
every
basically
single
playing the mirror
turn.
match.
Yeah,
It,
and then it's just RNG fest, right? Like who gets the cooler
it was.
items.
I would liken it towards a more controlled version of Arena because you don't really know what they're going to play because you don't know what they're going to pick and what
Right.
combinations are going to come out. You can't possibly plan what they're going to come out for unless you just have like a Sherlock Holmes type of intellect. But you're right. Like having a 0 hero power means they're going to do that first, and so the first part of the turn, 30 seconds of the turn, is them waffling on what kind of beast they want to build,
Let's back
and
up
then
and
they got
give
to
the
decide what
rules.
they're going to play.
What's the rules?
Oh yeah,
For those of
well
us
the
that
rules
did
are
not play it.
yes, rules. So you get you start out with 3 mana. Everybody's Deathstalker Rexar. Your hero power is 0, so you start out with a free hero power for the whole game. And there are some Build-A-Beasts, Zombies, I should say, that are
Wildebeests.
inside your deck already. I know Build-A-Beast.
And I think they're random,
Wildebeest.
right? Like it's not like you can count on knowing what kind of beast you're gonna get. They're all just kind of like randomly generated.
Yeah.
They are all
Yeah,
ugly.
you don't know.
Monstrosities. All of them.
It's like somebody took a bunch of beasts and put them in like a canning jar, shook them up, and then plop, there they were.
And
So,
in the blender.
yeah. In the blender. Yeah. So yeah, it
Blend-A-Beast.
was fine though. I mean, blend a beast. Oh jeez. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Just add sugar.
Dumbest brawl ever. Yep.
Spoonful of sugar makes the Blend-A-Beast go down. No, okay.
You thought
This has
castor
gone in
oil was
such a-
bad.
You thought it was a good idea to get out of the
Direction.
weather. Boy, were you wrong.
Oh.
I'm thinking of like roadkill in my mind
Oh,
at the moment. In a,
You know what would be cooler if the people who put the random Build-A-Beasts in your deck made like cool ones, but they all were kind of boring. I never like pulled one just out of my deck that was like, oh, this is cool. It was just like stats.
Blizzard, you
Well,
heard
because
it
some
here
of them are
first. You're
busted.
boring. Get out.
Yeah, but that would have been cool if somebody had chosen a busted one in your deck. Like, why not?
What
I'll
if
reckon.
the brawl was, instead of building the beast and throwing it in your hand, that they did some more coding work and just put in a secondary effect where you build it and it throws it in your deck? And you could just do that for 0 mana every turn. You don't know which one you're going to draw. That could be interesting.
Wow. That would be some
Huh.
interesting coding.
That'd be
Probably really hard to
The
do.
coding would be ridiculous. Like, this is not something that's a small feat. It's like, oh yeah, they just add to throw it in your deck at the end of your turn. Yeah.
Not for a
No.
tavern brawl, anyways, right?
No.
No,
It
you
was
know
fine.
what would have been
deck-
broken cool? Like broken cool would be if you could just pick a Build-A-Beast and then it would play it.
Oh, like cast it right as soon as you played it.
Yes.
Now that would
Oh.
be the next step of
'Cause-
RNG nightmare for me. I would
But
be like,
everybody
out.
would be able to do it, and it would be a lot faster.
Well, because everybody would just pick poison and charge and rush. That's all everybody would ever do. In fact, that's what they did anyways.
I
So
was gonna say that's what they do.
The strategy
anyway.
doesn't change too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just makes it faster.
All right.
Anyway.
I found
So basically, the tavern brawl means that it's just going to take you a while. So if you're frustrated with it or you aren't really willing to grind it out, then just like hit end and try again is probably not the best way of going about this. You might just want to just play it out because the longer you go, the more opportunities you have to pick up something that is good. So don't lose hope if they get like 2 back-to-back zombies, because chances are they're not going to get that every turn, and then you might be, flipping the switch soon. But I mean, if they got lethal on board, or you can see them setting up a 2-turn lethal without seeing what they have in their hand, then it's probably time to cash in.
yeah. Well, the trick with that brawl is just to try to play on curve as much as you can. That's really the trick with it. Like,
Yeah.
I was noticing, like, people would create these dope beasts, and then the card would sit in their hand for most of the game. Like, oh, you're trying to flip the game eventually, but you can't flip a full board. I'm sorry, no amount of poison is going to flip the full board unless you get like the bat that gets poisoned when it blows up. That's the way you do it. But
Yeah.
Bat.
I don't play around that. You know why? Because that's a pretty high odds of getting that. So, I just
Yeah,
if
I've
they
seen that, like,
happen
one
to clear my
time.
board, whatever.
Yeah. Most of the time, if you're lucky, you just get like a rush with a poison.
Yeah.
But not
yeah.
like the entire blow up bat situation.
So I have a discussion topic, but only if we have time. So instead of circumventing a lot of what we've planned on. I'm just going to go with what we planned, and then depending on how much time we have left, I might pitch you guys a question. But let's go into the deck of Zvik. Let me pull open the shish kebab here.
We have shish kebabs? I want one.
I want to get my
Here we go.
salt out
Okay,
of the way.
bumper time. Ooh. Never mind. The bumper is not playing on the live show this week. I will have to cut that out in post. All right. Tell us about
Make a note.
the People's Shaman even.
The People's Shaman even. So if you've if you ever watched a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, you might have noticed a pink panther cougar kind of character called Snagglepuss. And he would tag the word even on a lot of what he said, and we were just making a pun about that. So if you don't know that, just look it up. It's a little bit of culture Americana, if you will. Hanna-Barbera cartoons are, well, they're something. Anyhow, love them or like them. I don't care. They're special.
Those are your only two options, people. You either love them or you like them.
They're, it's hard to no. I don't know many people that say, "Oh, I hate them." People just kind of like, "Ah, it's okay."
Well, we watched them when we were kids. We probably weren't very discerning when we were children. It was like, yeah, I get to watch TV.
I don't do this often, but this reference is actually, I'm putting a Wikipedia in the show notes for you guys.
All right, Snagglepuss.
So we're going to talk some
in the
Shaman.
show
So, my little backstory for me is I was telling Robin even in a pre-show that I have been ping-ponging between rank 4 and 3 for probably the last month and a half. Like last month, I got to rank 3, dropped to 4, back to 3, dropped to 4, back to 3, playing all kinds of different decks. And that might have been part of the problem, but I stuck to a couple, about 2 or 3 decks, and I just had the same problem. Well, last week, Wicked Good hit Legend and with Even Shaman. Now, we've all been talking about Even Shaman being sort of a good, strong deck, probably since before the rotation. We thought, oh, Even Shaman could be good. Even Shaman could be good. First week, I remember thinking, yeah, Hagatha and Even Shaman, that could be a legitimate deck. But nobody was really playing it. I think the large reason is because at that time, Warlock had not been nerfed yet. And as you'll find out in our discussion, that Warlock is easily the worst matchup for this deck. So it kind of held it down. But now that Warlock isn't as prevalent and has had its power reduced a little bit, or I should say latent, if you will. It's not a word, but I guess it moved what it can do back a turn or two. It opens the door a little bit for this deck to exist. So I started playing some Even Shaman, and at first I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. And then I started playing in it, and I got a little bit better at it, but I thought, I don't know. This is kind of a zooey, mid-rangey kind of deck. I went and try and play some more Big Druid, because Cream Puff had said Big Druid was good, and he had taken it to Legend, and I like playing big stuff with Druid, so that was fun. And then I started kind of just tanking a little bit, and I tanked my rank all the way down to like rank 5 and 2. I'd been up to 3-4, tanked down to 5-2. Was really upset, very salty, much hate. So then I was like, what the heck? I'm going to play some Even Shaman, and I basically went on a tear, and right now I am sitting at rank 2 and 3 stars, and I have a 24 and 8 record with the deck.
Did you get lucky and not see a ton of Warlock?
I would say every 3 games I see a Warlock. Every 3 games I see one. But so I think the deck is legitimately actually good in the meta. I think it's a strong pick. Let's go through the deck list real quick before we start getting into it a little bit. It has
stream for you guys in the YouTube sphere or the live stream right now. It is up on the screen if you want to follow along.
Yeah, we'll talk about the cards kind of more in depth instead of like talk about why each one is included. I might have a couple notes on a couple of them, but I'm just going to basically read the list. It has 2 Direwolf Alphas, 2 Earthen Mites, 2 Flame Tongue Totems, 2 Knife Jugglers, 2 Merc Spark Eels, 2 Primal Fin Totems, 1 Vicious Scalehide, 2 Corpse Takers, 1 Cult Master, 2 Hex, 2 Serenite Chain Gangs, 2 Argent Commanders, 2 Fire Elementals, 1 Gen Greymane, 1 Alakir the Windlord, 1 Hagatha the Witch, 1 the Lich King, and 2 Sea Giants. Okay, so this deck, I kind of jokingly say, is Warlock Zoo disguised as Shaman. because you play it the same way. And this deck is a deck that forces you to really, really use what I'm just going to say good Hearthstone technique. And the reason I say that is because you have to really think about your trades and your placements maybe 1 to 2 turns ahead of doing it. You have to really think about what your opponent could do before you drop anything. It seems almost like a curve deck, just play whatever's on curve. But because you have a bunch of good options within the same tier, like mana tier, like Direwolf, Earth and Might, Flame Tongue, Knife Juggler, Merc Spark, Primal Twin Totem, which one of those cards is the best cards based on your matchup? Well, it just depends on what you think your opponent's going to do and what you have available. So there's a lot of things you have to think about. There's a lot of placement issues. Now, placement of minions on the board is something that I want to say hasn't been as big of a playing issue in the last couple sets. Rob, Eve, do you agree with that? Do you think that placement hasn't been such a strong consideration for play?
Well, there haven't been as many buffing things, right? And that's when you have to worry about placement a lot, is when you have things that, like Direwolf Alpha and your, what is it?
Well, it's Flame Tongue Totem.
Totem? Yeah, things like that where the placement gets really important. And then you have the one that pops out, Primal Fin Totem, right? That pops out. So it's like, where am I going to put this? Which one should I want to be buffing for trades? And yeah, I think, honestly, those are the two ones that really worried about it the most, was always Warlock Zoo and Shaman. I can't think of any class that cared about placement as much.
Well, the placement
Paladin,
doesn't really matter too much about the particular class outside of the classes that produce a minion. So that would be Paladin, that would be Shaman, right? And on top of those two classes, the reason that Zoo was such a placement-based thing is that way back when Zoo first initiated and further kept going in the meta, they had cards like Nerubian Egg where they would spawn something out of them, and so they would be, you know, a little bit more durable. But then once they popped, then something like that would come out. Haunted Creeper is another thing. So the reason that placement, or where you place your minions in Hearthstone, is kind of how you define placement in Hearthstone, where you put them on the board and how you interact with things coming out of another minion, things coming down from your hand where you have to place them between minions and actually do something as a result. There's lots of minions in every set that do this, but the difference is the minions that do this in the classes that have powerful minions that synergize that in their class or in the neutral set weren't powerful enough to be considered, or the meta was too fast or too slow for them to actually matter. And so generally speaking, when you have classes that are really, really powerful with this mechanic, are ones that A, draw a lot of cards and don't narrowly really need, or sorry, narrowly is not the right word. Classes like Warlock, where they can just draw a crap ton of cards and utilize a lot of the neutral ones that do the buffing, and then your class-based things or neutral cards that can benefit from those, you can just jam them on the board. Or you have classes like Paladin and Shaman that just like already have some of that built in both ways. You know, they have stuff in the neutral set, they have stuff in their own set, and then they have their hero powers that go with it.
Yeah, the hero powers are what make, in particular, Paladin and Shaman, like the classes that want to do all that stuff, because they have these weenie, dirtly minions that don't do much on their own. And so to kind of make the class a little more valuable as a class, they have to have cards that make those dirtly minions a little stronger.
And now it gets even more narrow with how you can define if a class is going to be good or bad in that window, because now you've got to have not only minions that benefit from all the credentials we've already covered, but they also have to fit within the window of odd or even. And then also synergize with a single hero power for 1 mana, or a buffed up hero power for Paladin, because buffing up the power for Shaman is obviously and objectively just a stupid idea. So the
I don't know, I've seen it done before to great effect. I don't think it's good.
You've
in this
seen
meta, but...
a odd based Shaman be done to great effect.
Yep.
I could see maybe a world where that would be, except for the problem
every
is
single time.
well, you could pick taunt, or as we'll discover, like in the even shaman, the healing totem's your best buddy.
Yeah.
Like
That-
turn one, if I
awesome.
hero power healing totem, I'm excited. Hands go up in the air with the touchdown symbol because basically my minions don't die,
Yep.
or not very easily, anyways.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get into general play for this. We've already talked about placement being a factor. Being able to play Hearthstone, I'm going to say correctly or with good technique, is something that you have to be pretty well versed in to make this deck work. You can't just plop things on the board. Let me just say that again. You cannot just, I see a minion that I can play for 2 mana, I plop it on the board. You cannot do that, or else you will lose.
I made the mistake of playing too fast with this deck and definitely have misplaced the buffing cards and thought about it after, like a couple seconds later, going, oh crap, I just lost like maybe 2 points of damage that I could have had if I hadn't like just gone so quickly without thinking it through.
Well, and you're right, Eve. That's the number one pitfall of this deck is it seems obvious what you need to do, but it's kind of like doing a math problem really hastily. Like you know how to do the problem, you just kind of blur through it. Oh, I got this, I know what to do. But then you miss an exponent or you miss one detail that makes the problem, the solution wrong. The way I like to play this deck is I have to think about what can my opponent do to me before I place any minion. Like my favorite opening hand is one Direwolf Alpha, one Flame Tongue, one Knife Juggler, and one Merc Spark Eel, or sub Primal Fin Totem in any one of those. That's my favorite opening mulligan. I love that because it gives me all the flexibility that I want in my opening game. But how I choose to play those minions in what order is huge, and it can have a lot of bearing on how the game goes out. For example, if I'm playing Paladin, I'm not playing that Knife Juggler until I can like drop at least a totem. You know what I mean? Because I want that Knife Juggler to just either become the target or to take out some of their guys, because the moment I can get 4 or 5 minions on the board against an odd paladin, I win. I've had odd paladins concede on turns 3 and 4 because I have a board that they cannot get through. Even though my board is a bunch of 1-0-2s and 1-1s and and 2-2s and stuff like that, it's because they know that they can't stop that. I can always chip away their guys. So unless they have like the God draw coming later with weapon into hero power into power up, and they can just put up a wall for me, they just won't be able to stop the machine before I get it going. So when you play, almost always you will hero power because it's 1 cost. Why not? It's a good value. One mana for a totem is good mana. And we said there's kind of like a tier list of the totems, which are the best ones. In my opinion, the best 2 are the healing totem and the totem that's basically the taunt. I don't remember what it's actually called. Stoneclaw totem. Because those basically protect or sustain your minions. Hero power, well, spell power is useless, which is weird because it didn't used to be the case. You were like, oh, I hope I get the spell power totem because Wrath of Air totem, so that I can make my spirit claws work really good and do all the things I want them to do. But then that card got nerfed, so then we don't care about it anymore. Or if you were playing aggro shaman and you needed some extra burst with your spells, but anymore it's kind of like hero power, boom, and then you have to think about, do I play a buffing minion or do I play just another minion? Like if I can, I want to play turn 1 hero power, turn 2 primal fin totem. Now I have 3 minions. And then I can start having the fun time with the Flame Tongue plus another totem, or the Dire Wolf, or the Knife Juggler plus a totem, and all this stuff. And I have a very large board very quick. And then I can manage it as I see fit.
Okay, I've been playing wrong then, because I immediately put down a buff thing.
Well, you can do that. That could be the right play, depending on what they do.
The lightning rod, then yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes I'll play a Knife Juggler because I want to kill the Knife Juggler so that they don't have necessarily, they may not have the resources to kill my Flame Tongue totem, because I might want the Flame Tongue totem because I know I need that 2/2 on whatever minions I put it between to take out like the Tar Creeper that's coming. You know what I mean? Knife Juggler ain't going to take it out. But if I put a Knife Juggler down, they go, oh, I got to get rid of that. And then they get rid of it and they spend their 1 Wrath if it's a Druid, and then they can't spend that Wrath on a Flame Tongue. So there's some mind games you can play with, like the order and how you put stuff out. That's why I say I like to have the one of each of the 2 cost minions in my hand early on, because it gives me the options that I need. Like if I'm playing against a zoo, like I played against the zoo the other day, and first turn he drops a flame imp, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do nothing for a turn. So I just hero powered, And then turn 2, I hero powered again. And I was like,
And
well,
they just ignore it unless you get a.
and they just kind of they ignored it. Yeah, they ignored it. And then the next turn, I had a knife jug into totem, and it's just like, pop, pop, and I cleared their guy, and I started proceeding to build the machine that would crush them. It's kind of fun to beat Zoo at its own game, because I think Shaman can out Zoo. Yeah, you just do it better because you have the 1-cost hero power. You always have
resources that you can buff. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, they have the draw a card every turn, and you have make a minion every turn.
You have board every turn.
Every turn.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's now after you get through that initial stage, like the cards you want more than anything else, like by turn 3 or turn 4, is if you can put down a Corpse Taker or a Serenite Chain Gang, you're on your way to victory. Those are your blowout cards. Like against a Paladin, they might think they have a chance when you got a bunch of dirtily totems and stuff, but the moment you put down Serenite Chain Gang or Corpse Taker, that's it. GG. Unless they have, I had a Paladin today beat me.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't even have hard removal. He had both owls in his hand.
Oh my word! Yeah, that's brutal.
And I was like, okay, I got this.
Piece of value from Corpse Taker.
It does. It really does. And he owled Corpse Taker and then traded into a bunch of my stuff. And I'm like, okay, how do you like my second Corpse Taker? And he's like, owl that too.
Do it again, and then that's it. Yeah.
And it was like, and basically he proceeded to gradually just take over, and I couldn't do anything
because
you
for 6 mana.
Basically,
because he
was
doing it cheaper than you were as well, right? Because he did it for 6 mana, and your Corpse Takers cost you 8 over 2 turns, and his was 6 over 2 turns. So he's just like, sitting pretty. Yeah.
So in terms of value, like he outvalued me, and he was able to do more with less, and that's how I lost. Now, the Paladin matchup, now that we're kind of talking about it, is actually pretty straightforward. Just don't let them have a board and build your board as fast as you can, because Odd Paladin doesn't run removal. They're just like you, except for you have your minions. Yeah, they can't. They don't have the removal. Your minions have bigger butts and theirs don't, and then you have the possibility of a healing totem, which will heal up your any of your minions.
2
really,
turns of good healing totem, like healing up your minions, is almost blowout level, like game over type stuff. And the other thing too, to build on what you said, Grant, if you're running against Paladin that's odd, and you have a decision to make where you have to choose which minions you want to clear, generally speaking, the cards that are blowing you out are the little weenie ones. So you need to kill the Silverhand recruits over a 3/3 at a lot of times, because they're going to turn ginormous with level ups. So you have to kill the minions. There are times where you're like, they've only got 1 or 2 minions down. One is a Silverhand and the other is like an Argent Squire. So they're like little wind, and it's like, well, I can push for damage now and kind of exponentially climb back. But when in reality is they're trying to set it up so they can get at least 3 down. You got to minimize it so that at worst case scenario for 7 mana, they play, or even 8 mana, they play Hero Power, Lost in the Jungle, level up. That should be the worst case scenario for turn 8 for you. Or better yet, turn 7, level up plus Hero Power for them. For you, that means that now you've got to prioritize killing Silverhand recruits every turn, and if they have something else and you're like, I need to push damage now so I can get ahead later, then by all means do it. But you can't make that decision until the Silverhand recruits are dealt with, or unless you know that they've been sitting on like 5 turns in a row and they haven't had a level up. So there's also that.
I generally play with that in mind. I like terminate Silverhand recruits with extreme prejudice. I mean, you don't leave them because that's the only way they can get stuff done. I mean, a lot of times I'll just clear those guys and then just ignore the other stuff and just proceed to go face, because they might be able to take out one of your minions. Now, if they have the potential to take out a Flame Tongue Totem with some shenanigans,
that's fine.
I might clear everything, because the Flame Tongue Totems are a very high priority because they allow you to like extremely accelerate your game. Now, let's say hypothetically they are allowed to build a board of 3/3s with taunt. You want to make sure you've planned ahead, and that Flame Tongue Totem is all the way to almost to the left, and you have the series of stuff on the right, and you just can trade up until it's gone. You know what I mean?
Do they play Blessing of Might in that list now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you'll be aware of that as well.
Blessing of Might is a factor. It really sucks when they can Blessing of Might a Divine Shield minion, because that can really take the wind out of your sails real fast, or they can just hit you in the dome for a lot of damage if
Can
you're.
you tell me about Earth and Might?
Earth and Might is a card that has been like an unsung hero, but all I've heard in all the shows that I listen to, like namely Wicked Good and Blister Guy, about how fantastic that card is.
Hmm.
And I'm here to tell you that that card is fantastic as
I
well.
love that card the
I will
second we
join
saw
the
it.
chorus.
Do you
I
try
think-
really
I-
hard to put it on an elemental?
No.
Or
No.
does
There's
that not
only two
even...
Ellie's in the
no.
list.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
No, there's three.
Okay.
There's the two fires plus Alakir.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Um,
Alakir can hit the tag. Yeah, Alakir's your burst because it's like old school Rockbiter. Rockbiter
Mhm.
on Alakir. This one is Alakir Earth and Might instead of Bloodlust
mean-
because you can't get it outside of Hagatha.
If you can like put an Alakir or a Corpse Taker next to a Flame Tongue and then put Earth and Might on it,
Bye-bye.
bruh. 10 to 12 damage to the face is just stupid. It's just so busted. And the thing is like there have been a handful of games where I played where I didn't really have a good turn to because maybe I had a bad draw or something where it's like, I need to have a minion that I can do stuff with. And if you size up your matchup, like let's say you're playing a druid and I have, let's say, I hero power, but my next play is not until turn 4 with like a good minion, not a non-totem minion. It's like, well, he's just going to clear my board. I've seen druids so often, like they see that healing totem and they'll just face tank that healing totem, or maybe not the healing one because they'll just heal, but like the air power totems or the taunt totems, they'll face tank it, even though they don't need to per se, because they know I'll buff it up and now I have a 2/4 and I can clear a lot of things with a 2/4 and keep tempo and keep board control with a 2/4. So if you think of it as just a buff card and not a value card, you're better off. So but when you can drop that on an Alakir, or you can drop it on a what's the
Fire
the
elemental?
fire elemental? No, it's a fire elemental. I was gonna say something different, and it was not computing. You drop it on a fire elemental, it makes it an 8. Let's see, an 8/7, because it gives it a
6.
2/2 buff. Plus you
Wait. It's a
fire elemental is a 6/5.
You're right.
So an 8/7.
Yeah.
And you have this big threatening body, plus you just got an elemental in your hand. It's amazing. In fact, the elemental I almost always get is Ixalan. Getting
Druid.
Ixalan is stupid. Because check this out. I had a game, I put it in the Discord links and picks. Ixalan, Flame Tongue Totem, summon another Flame Tongue Totem, and I was going to put Alakir in the center of those Flame Tongue Totems on the next turn and hit that dude for massive damage, and the dude conceded it. He wouldn't let me have my fun because I just had him dominated. He saw those two come down, saw Ixalan, realized he'd used all his removal on my other little guys, couldn't do anything about it, and just conceded. I mean, you can do
Another thing you can do
stuff
with
like that.
the Earth and Might totem that I like doing is putting one on your healing stream totems, because now you have a 2/4 that always heals and that doesn't go away. So not only is it already a high priority target, but now it's durable and difficult to deal with, and it's clearing their stuff. And I want to piggyback on what you said earlier, where when people start figuring out how to play against this, it means that they have to start clearing your stuff every turn. So now you turn into a paladin, but everything you put down is a threat because of how you've built your deck. And on top of that, if you're getting them to clear your crap every turn, they're going to run out of resources eventually, and you're just making them commit to your totems. So if you can like get anything to stick, it's just kind of like they're going to start running out of resources slower and slower and slower. And then by a certain point in the game, if I want to use this to kind of transition Grant to talk about Hagatha, which is if you're kind of going even, pun intended, throughout most of the game, then you get to a certain point where you're like, I need to clear the board. I don't really want to clear my minions, so they don't have any taunts, and I want to make sure that the initiative is kind of reset, and I've got a decent hand, so I'll go face, and then I only got 2 totems and 1 minion. Go face, drop Hagatha, and then every turn now you're getting spells. And I can't emphasize that enough, because the value engine that you get through Hagatha is so good. Like, even though most of the shaman spells are nutty and difficult to use, a lot of times there are some things that are just extra burst or bloodlust or lava burst, or maybe you get another earth and might, or maybe you get frost shock, which just lets
multiple
you stall.
hexes.
Frost shock is insane, you guys. I don't think people understand that getting that spell is not game over. Like, you could just shut down somebody from hitting you for whatever weapon they have. You can block a single point of damage. You can stall for 1 turn, drop more minions, get another spell, and it's cheap. You can Earth Shock, which is basically like a 1 damage owl for 1. So, like, there's all kinds of crazy things you can get out of this. And the only bad ones are generally the board wipes, like Volcano, and even then, it's not always lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Grant, have you had any crazy Spellstone turns that have come up? Because I know that those are the fun ones.
I almost had one. I was playing a mage, and I was playing control mage. By the way, control mage is not a good matchup either.
Mm-hmm.
Warlock, anything except for Zoo. So any control-y warlock plus control mage,
Yeah.
or easy big spell mage, whatever you want to call it. They're both bad matchups. But kind of to extend what Rob was saying is that Hagatha allows a deck that is very board centric to suddenly become competitive in the later game against heavy control decks. Control decks like Priest and Mage and Warlock that have a lot of removal, and they're just going to sit back and say, nope, clear that board and clear that board and clear that board. Hagatha allows you to kind of do things that they're not ready for. So there was one turn I almost had it. I had a Spellstone. I was clearing this mage's board with all these lightning storms that I had gotten and volcanoes that I had gotten and all this ridiculous stuff that I was getting off Hagatha. And then top deck Sea Giant. I plopped it down, and I was going to Spellstone that sucker and have 3 of them on the board, and I would have won, except that he top decked a Polymorph, and I couldn't do it. He just it was lucky top
You
deck.
didn't
It was
want
just
to
one of
get
those
3
things.
sheeps though.
Well, he killed the sheep because he's mage,
'Cause
but he
he's
didn't
mage,
have
yeah.
Jaina. Jaina ended up being the last card in his deck,
Oh,
and it was like, oh, I could have won that one.
that's
Totally
awesome.
unfavored, but it was a fun game because, for me, I start getting really happy with Hearthstone and excited about Hearthstone when the outcome is uncertain based on the RNG. Like, people gripe and complain about RNG in Hearthstone, but I'm just gonna say that if you take out the RNG completely out of Hearthstone,
Game's
the
not
game
fun.
dies right
Yeah.
now. Like, the game
So
doesn't last
boring.
another season
Yeah.
because it's too predictable, it's too mechanical, and the decks I like playing the least are the games that are super, super mechanical and predictable. Like today, I got a Frostmourne off a Lich King, and I killed an Umbra with the Frostmourne, and then I killed, what did I kill? I killed a Rin with the Frostmourne, and then I killed a Void Daddy with the Frostmourne. And my board looked like a Control Warlock board before the game ended. And I won that game handily because there was no way that Warlock was going to touch me with all that stuff. And then he cleared my board, and then I had 3 Void Babies, and then I basically Flame Tongue Totem into Alakir for the win. GG.
Nice.
But
So
So,
I
yeah.
wanted to keep this discussion on Hagatha, Grant, kind of more of like how you want to set it up, because Hagatha can
Okay.
be one of the hardest things for us to figure through, like the
Mhm.
mental state of like, when is this going to be a good idea?
Mhm.
And the craziest thing about Hagatha is she's such a powerful card that you're going to find this with a couple other cards that are not just in this deck, just in your Hearthstone careers, if you guys are fairly new to the game or you're kind of even experienced, that there are really, really powerful cards in the game that you can play and you can win games with them, and you can win games by playing them poorly.
Because of them.
Yes. So you can win games on the back of Hagatha that you should never have played.
It's true.
And there was a really good discussion going on between Schwal, Wicked Good, and Steven Sensei. Congrats to Steven, because he actually hit Legend with this deck after playing a bunch of Hunter and stuff, and then like flipping the switch, changing to this deck, and then winning. But in the game that he hit Legend in, he made a lot of mistakes with the deck. Not necessarily mistakes in the sense that they were objectively the wrong decisions to make, but rather it was probably suboptimal. If you were hand tracking or you're in this certain state, it probably would have been better in this sense. Or if they didn't have this, then this would have been better. Or this is just a difference of opinion. You can say, well, I'm not going to play to this card. And we had something said where, I'm not sure if I said it or if Wicked Good said it, but I just think that when you're playing even Shaman, and in this given meta right now, I feel like just in any deck you play or play against, you're playing your outs more than I feel like you have ever had to in Hearthstone, meaning that you just like, I'm going to choose to play around this, and there's like 6 other options that I can play around, but I'm not going to play around that. And you say like, if you have these decisions and you're like, I'm not going to play around this, it's the least likely of all of these things that I need to be playing around, and you can get rewarded for those kind of decisions. But there are times when you can't play around everything. You know what I mean? Like you have to play into something. You have to play into MC Tech in order to play around, Volcano, for example, or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I had a game today against a Warlock, and I deduced that they had Defile in their hand, but they didn't have Hellfire. And so I basically made my deck to where it would never be a good Defile turn for them. And I was waiting for like, okay, turn 4. I'm going to make you use your Hellfire. He didn't use it. So I was like, well, I could totem here, but I'm not going to do that because if I do get the 1/1, he can Defile me. I would lay money he's got Defile on him. So I'm just going to not do that. And I'm not going to play something that he can make a 1/1. 25%
you know what I mean? Or
have a 1
that
health.
You lose the board.
Right. And because at that point in time, there's some shenanigans he could have worked. I don't remember exactly what I thought, but he would have been able to start taking over the board if he was allowed to Defile.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited, and it turned out I was right. He didn't have Hellfire, but then something happened to where I did have a 1/1, and as soon as that happened, he Defiled. But I had put the game in such a situation to where the best he could have done was clear my board because I was kind of hoarding my cards a little bit, or I was putting really fatty minions like, okay, I know you have Defile, whatever, I don't care. I'm going to put this 8/8 down and try to deal with that. And there was another time in that same game where after he had Defiled the board, I built the board back up again, and I was starting to look at it. I'm like, oh, he's got Godfrey in his hand. Because he just like some of the decisions he was making, like how he was choosing to manage my pieces. And that's something we don't talk about a lot in Hearthstone, kind of as a sidebar, is like how your opponent chooses to manage your pieces if they can't do things directly to it, is they might be setting you up for something coming down. So if you're smart, you can like pay attention, like, oh, he's pinging this minion because he wants to do X thing, or he's pinging that minion because of other things. So like if you see a druid face tank on turn 2, or face tank like a corpse taker, you better believe there's removal coming, like a swipe or something that they couldn't do earlier. You know what I mean?
Same scenario.
So like
if you got 3 minions down and they just choose to do nothing, they're like, okay, they probably have an MC Tech ready for you.
Right. So you have to like pay attention to what they're doing and what they're not doing, and especially with this deck, like you're talking about. Rob talked about playing to your outs. When you're playing this deck, you have to think, okay, there are high priority targets here. There are secondary targets. I have to make them like fooled into think that they have to do something now. Like I have to like get them to hit the panic button and try to get. And so I have to not worry about certain things. Like I want the Warlock. Well, let's put it this way. I don't want the Warlock to clear my board, but the odds are they're going to clear my board at some point in time in the game. I want to try and clear the board when there's a whole ton of totems on it rather than a bunch of really good minions, because most of your minions don't get above 3 health. When you consider like the Serenite Chain Gangs and, Scale Banes and all that stuff, or Scale Hides, I mean. And if you put too many of your good minions out and then they clear your board, see, one thing Warlock will never lack is cards. So if they can beat you in the card game, they win. You don't have a chance. So you have to be kind of stingy and use as much as you need to try and bait out removal so that you can keep reloading and keep reloading and keep reloading. And when you play Hagatha, sometimes you just abandon that strategy. Kind of going back full circle here. Like against Hagatha is the card you have for the control for the long game.
In this deck.
It's the X factor. I've actually wiped my own board because I needed to get Hagatha out like stat because I knew it was happening.
See,
That's
that
actually
is always
Steven
my dilemma, right? It's like you are going to destroy your entire own board when you play her half the time, and that's so hard for me to do, even though she's going to give you so much value and so much long game. Just to take out your entire own board is tough.
You have to see how much of your board is actually cards and how much of it is totems. Because if you're clearing totems, then it's like you're going to get those every turn anyways. And on top of that, like just remember that even if, like again, and going back to Steven, even though he made like a difference of opinion or some things that may have been suboptimal over a different decision, he still won the game and he still hit legend. So if you're going to be too ginger about some of the decisions you're going to make, you just say, look, I'm going to make the call. I'm going to do it now. We'll see how it happens. And then you make a mental note that you did that. And then after the game is like, okay, was that the switch that lost me the game? Did I do it too early? Was the game close? Because sometimes if the game is close in that moment, that might have actually given you a chance. Other times that also could mean that you being close means that you playing that Hagatha turn means that you sacrifice just a little bit of damage to the point that you could have won had you not done it. So there's those little edge cases you kind of have to like go back and rewatch your game. But
Yeah,
there's also, with like anything in Hearthstone, the games typically can be won as, or not typically, I would say games can be won on a single turn of play, but there's a lot of micro decisions and macro decisions you have to make across the way. So don't get butthurt or depressed too much if you make one decision and you feel like that lost you the game, because sometimes it's not actually that. It's a lot of other factors, what they drew, what you drew, etc. But I think we've been talking about this quite a bit, and I wanna kind of open this up for you guys. There's a lot of very good even Shaman players in our community, and please go to the Discords of any Discord. All of the people we're talking about are in pretty much all of the Hearthstone Discords. It doesn't have to be ours, but ours is a good place to find all of the people we've mentioned, and you can talk to them about it. You can ask Steven, what did you do after you learned this? Like, how has your play changed since then? You can talk to Steve. You can talk with Steve. You can listen to Off Curve's episode on even Shaman then. But I think we do have one big piece of this deck we haven't talked about, or two pieces, sorry, that we do need to cover, and one of them is Cult Master, and the other is Sea Giant.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, is it just dependent on your matchup whether you care about like getting Sea Giant out as fast as you can, or is he just kind of a, I put this in my deck because I have a board so often that why wouldn't I put it in my deck?
it's both and.
Okay.
You it is super easy to get a board of 5 or 6 minions. And in a meta that, let's put it this way, when I'm facing a Shaman or when I'm facing a Paladin, I keep Sea Giant, because the board's going to get big like that.
Okay.
It's going to get big fast, especially in the mirror. You're gonna, and it was the same way like when a couple months back when even Paladin was the rage, people were starting to run Sea Giants because there was so much mirror action going on. If you could put, the games often were decided by who could put Sea Giant down first or who could put Tareem down first, right? And that was just how it goes. That's just the logic. It's like, okay, so we're kind of at parity. We're doing basically the same things. All right, 8/8. What you gonna do? Oh, you have a hex. Darn. Or you do nothing. Okay, now you lose. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why that deck's in there. Now, Cult Master is in there because like all board centric decks, it tends to want to run out of resources quicker. It doesn't have any card draw, so you have to use the Cult Master. Theoretically, like you want to kind of put it down right before you know you're gonna have to trade into some taunts or something like that. I've even used Cult Master.
Grant.
What?
Sensei Grant,
What?
how much should I use for my resources? How many cards should I draw when I drop a Cult Master?
It just depends. It depends on the status of the game. Like for me, I want to try and get 2. I'd like to get 2 if I can, because a body plus 2 card draw is good. It's a 4-drop card. And Cult Master dies. Like it's a 4/2, it dies to everything. It doesn't matter. It's gonna die. So, and it's a priority target once you put it down.
Do you find yourself putting this down to bait out or to block Defile turns? Because I have seen some people do that where they like clear a Warlock board and they drop this and they have a couple like 1 attack or 1 health stuff and they're like, I'm going to draw a crap ton of cards if you kill my guys.
I actually haven't had the opportunity to try that yet.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I don't see Cult Master too much in my games. I've seen her a couple times, but honestly, like, because she's a 4-drop card, I don't usually play her on curve. Almost never play her on curve.
That's true.
Because I would, if I can put a corpse, the best card against Warlock is Corpse Taker on an empty board, or their side of the board is empty. Doesn't matter. If you can put a Corpse Taker down, they go, well, I can't do anything to that because they have no direct hard removal for it. It's a 2-turn removal if they have it. You know what I mean?
I mean,
so
if it's got the bubble on it, it's really
if it's got the bubble on it, and it almost always does, because
you've got 3 bubble cards.
Yeah, you got enough bubble cards to last you, so it almost always at least has the bubble, and it's super hard for them to get rid of, and so Cult Master I might play Cult Master 6, 7, 8, depending, probably in the 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7 turn range, because I'd rather be playing Alakir or Lich King or a Sea Giant somewhere in there too. So I prefer getting 2 cards out of it. there have been times where it's like, well, I got to put a threat down. I'm okay with just getting the one because maybe I just need more options, and the one more option is better than none options. So,
I like the
but Cult
top end of
Master,
this deck a lot, outside of Cult Master, because basically, even Gen and Fire Elemental, just like dropping them on curve is just like, well, crap, these guys can now go tall, and I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? You go wide, you go
Yeah,
tall. Deck is crazy scary if it can do both at the same time.
and that's a interesting decision point we just brought up, is especially like when you're playing Druid. Like Druid is the one I find the matchup I find I have to think the hardest about
Yeah.
because of a stupid card called Spreading Plague. And with token Druid running around, see that's the thing about, we said that Shaman can out zoo. Token Druid can out zoo anybody.
Yeah,
If they
always
get the
gonna
chance
win.
to. They're always going to win. So you want to be wide at first, but you have to start thinking really carefully about how wide you want to go, because if you have a bunch of 0-2s and 1-1s on the board and they put down a spreading plague, and then they buffer and then they put Soul of the Forest on it, you just don't win. You can't beat that. There's just no winning. That's impossible to beat unless for some reason you
Hagatha.
you get Hagatha and then all kinds of crazy RNG from her. But you can't bank on that in a general strategy. That's just like, well, YOLO, maybe. Oh, hey, look what I got. Oh, hey, look what I got. So
I mean, I've seen people where if you want to go and win that, you've got to race and go fast, and you're going to find yourself ignoring what they're doing quite a bit, because if you can out pressure them,
5, right?
Yeah, because the idea is you get Spreading Plague is 6. Sorry, Living Mana is 5.
There you go.
So
that gives you a good amount of time.
You got a good amount of time. That's right. So like, what you can do is you basically are gonna hard mulligan for the eel. That's what you want. You want the eel and you want the wolf. Those are your 2 cards you definitely want.
Eel, wolf, flame tongue.
Yeah, eel, wolf, and flame tongue. If you've got a primal fin, because the primal fin's gonna win you the game pretty much, at that point. Because you can just trade off the 3-1s like with that. But like again, the whole point is that you're going in fast and you're forcing them to trade, because you're able to go even by trading minions every turn, but you're not the one with the initiative to do that. You're the one that's just like, I'm gonna hit you in the face a whole bunch, and when they're trading your minions, they're also innately losing value on going wide themselves. So you have to kind of get ahead of the ball. And it's really strange to say, but basically you got to get bored, get it fast, get maybe 1 or 2 trades in, and then it's time to go. Like it's very much like Zoo in that respect, because Zoo would win the token mirror a lot of times just for the sake of being able to draw a crap ton of cards. With this deck, you don't have that luxury. You gotta draw cards by just dumping everything and hoping to God that you get all of your early game cards and a Corpse Taker to just go dome them. In my opinion, that's how I would play the matchup.
Yeah, that's generally what I would do too. The thing about Token Druid and all the Druid decks is because even Token Druid is a late game deck. As odd as that sounds, they a lot of times will sit back and they'll play like a Tar Creeper, or they'll play a Oaken Golem, whatever that guy is, the 3/6, and they'll play that, and you're like, I just still don't know what deck I'm dealing with. And then the next thing you know is they go Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest, buff you up. Oh, and then if you don't deal with it, all of it, you can't. That's it. All they have to do is then they'll do branching paths, roar, you're dead. They can hit you for like 40 damage, like that. And in that deck,
Warriors have a rough time with that too. Like not just token decks, but control decks have a really rough time with that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that can really, especially if they have all the stuff they need in their hand, which a lot of times they do. It's just so hard for any deck to deal with that. But it takes them a while to set it up, and you have to kind of be really careful about what you're dealing with. But generally, I always play around Spreading Plague and just try to hope for the best. Half the time, the best strategy is to expect a Spreading Plague. Just hope that your board is big enough and you have enough of your buff cards out to deal with it. Because you want to put them on the back foot. If you let them
Flame Tongue placement can win you that matchup as well.
Yes. Yeah, bad Flame Tongue matchup will lose you that game by far.
For sure.
So,
all right.
Anyhow,
Eve, do you have any other questions? Because I know that you had a really rough time playing this. I played this way back when this deck was not optimized, and I enjoyed it, but I still went 50-50, so it wasn't... I think the optimization thing, as of late, plus the nerfs, really helped this deck a lot.
The nerfs helped a lot.
I think going back in after listening to Grant talk about the strategy, I'd probably do a little bit better, but I think my unlucky night was just like too many warlocks.
It was a pocket
And
meta on top of learning a
Yeah.
deck was really bad.
And I just wasn't motivated to continue to try and learn the deck enough so that I'd have a better odd in that matchup. It was just not enjoyable enough to keep,
That was
slugging
me with
away
the
at
hunter
it,
decks
so-
that we talked about a couple weeks ago. I literally couldn't win with a deck, not even a single game. So, I mean, the
Get
deck's
that
not
in
bad. It's
Quest Priest. Like, how's the Quest Priest matchup? Probably bad as well.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen a single Quest Priest since I started playing the deck.
Okay.
So that's been
it's a
32
rank 5
games
thing,
ish.
probably, yeah. Rank 5, rank 10 thing.
Yeah. Quest Priest and the priest that does like the Dragon Soul weapon with all the revive shenanigans and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Those decks are really good in the hands of a skilled player. They are backbreaking, but people just don't play them for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
just outright lose
just
to a
got
bunch of random
unlucky.
things, too.
the decks you're
They
gonna
have,
see.
two
What?
Duskbreakers, which those
Duskbreakers
are
are
pretty good at
tough,
removing your
man. You
entire
got to play
board.
around them
Then they've
really
got,
well.
Vanish, which is ridiculous as well. Because
Was that a miracle
do you
that
really
you were playing
want
against? Or Quest
the
Rogue?
Quest Priest? Vanish? Oh, sorry. what is
Quest
it?
Priest doesn't have Vanish.
Scream, something Scream.
Psychic Scream.
Psychic Scream. I don't know why I think it's called.
Oh
Vanish.
yeah,
Yeah,
dumping a bunch
feels
of
like
totems
Vanish.
into your deck sucks.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Psychic Scream, because then you're like pulling tokens every time you're drawing a
Oh,
card instead
yeah.
of pulling something decent. So that
Mhm.
sucks. And then they've got the spell that does 1 damage to everything and heals life link, damage.
Spirit Lash.
I think
Spirit
the
Lash,
two
so-
philosophical aspects of playing this deck, and really any deck, but this deck and any as you play in Hearthstone, can't talk apparently.
Even.
The two things that I keep in mind is I have to understand before, when I hit play and the moment it shows the classes, I don't even know what archetype it is. I say, okay, the games I always do well on is when I say this is potentially a very unfavored match, or this is actually a favored match. I just got to play smart. Those like I'm forecasting what's going to be before I start playing. When I do that, I tend to play better. So if I get dumpstered on by a cube lock, well, yeah, that deck is going to dumpster me, especially if they have removal and especially if they have the weapon. Okay? There's just not much I'm going to do about it. The other philosophical notion is that I have to make sure that I'm not indecisive about my decision making. And that's my put this above your work computer on your wall statement for the show. Do not be indecisive about your decisions. I wanted to say it earlier. Rob brought up an excellent point. Is like when you're playing Hearthstone, you have to say, I am going to do this thing. I'm not sure if it's the right call, but I'm going to do this thing because X, Y, and Z.
Like it's following a line of play.
It's
Is that what
following
you're talking about?
Well,
a line of play. What? Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say it's saying what you're going to do in your head. You're not like
Right.
But is
making
it-
a decision that's just like, this feels right. You're like, no,
But like for this game, I'm gonna be really aggressive, or like
No,
for this
no,
game,
this
I'm gonna be really
decision-
defensive.
This decision
I'm
play.
going to
Okay.
make,
This
and it's
play.
because of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
And-
good at that.
And
I
that's
second guess everything I do.
well, and if you watch pro streamers, they do that all the time. They're like, well, let's think. I want to do this. I'm not sure if this is right, but I think I'm going to do this. They talk it out, and by talking it out and like putting it into the ether, there's something about that helps it be more formal, if you will.
Dog does
So
this
that way
really
when-
well, by the way. If you want to watch a streamer do this, Dog does this a lot.
Yeah, he does do that. And what it does is it helps you put like a little landmark to where, okay, all right, so that decision I made back there, that was a bad idea. I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I
and
put
I do that
Burrows
with
in my Quest Rogue, so I'm not going to do that again. Shots
ancient
fired,
history
sorry.
there.
That sounds fun.
It does sound fun, but fun doesn't win
I'm
sometimes.
going to put this in my deck because it's fun. I'm not
There you
going
go.
to win
Now
games
that's-
because of this.
Well, like when I was playing Togwaggle Druid last month, it was like, all right, I don't know if this is gonna win. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I'm gonna play the crap out of this deck and see what
Rob
happens.
wants
Like
me to
for
meme right now.
science, yeah. Rod was proud of me.
Yeah, there you go. Rob
And
wants me to meme.
honestly, I got up to like high rank 3 with that deck. I did fine with it. You know what I mean? But there's something about sort of like setting the parameters for yourself. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna do the X, Y, and Z. When I make the decision, this is what I'm doing. Because a lot of times we'll not say anything. We'll be in our mind, and we'll just kind of half absent-mindedly move a card out, and then we go, oh shoot, what did I do that for? Or oh, that was the wrong decision, and then you're mad at yourself, right?
That's
Like
how I
I
play the
lost.
game. I'm always
I
mad.
lost a
That's my
game the
secret.
other day that I had exact lethal if I had just stopped for a half a second longer and put the Alakir between the two flame tongue totems instead of to the right of it. You know, I could have had 2 more damage, but I was like, well, I'm not going to win this game, but I didn't calculate lethal properly. And I was mad at myself. I had to like turn the game off and walk away because it was my own fault. I had the game won. I had done everything correct up to that moment, and then I lost. And then Recruit Runner's like, haha, that's all I need. I'm going to Rexar your board,
Yeah.
and I'm going to put stuff down you can't deal with, and I'm going to hit you in the dome. You know?
Grant, have you ever had the games where you're playing on your PC and you have your mouse on the end turn button and you're like still thinking about what else you could do in the turn, like with some mana X'd over, and you're like holding down the end turn button and then you like let go and you're like, the second you let go, you're like, damn it! I should not have done that.
I have not done that one because I don't touch the mouse when I'm thinking about what I'm doing.
You also play a lot of mobile, don't you?
I do play a lot of mobile.
So when I play most of my games on PC. So it's like, yeah.
Every time I've hit
right.
Legend, I hit it on my phone.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I had a funny game today where I was playing this Warlock, and it was into the realm where we were using Hagatha to like get stuff, random stuff. So I was getting like random crazy stuff. And somehow I had gotten the air elemental that's the 4/8 that has Wind Fury.
Ooh.
And he had done a turn that I was like, oh boy. He just like put some big minions down and he did the Lich King like magic shell on him. And there was nothing that I really could do. I'm like, well, I'm gonna put down this card. And I slapped it down.
Stormwatcher?
And he conceded right away. He conceded right away.
What?
And then but before his portrait blew up, it's conceded, and he goes, "Oh, that was a mistake," meaning he thought it was something it wasn't.
He probably thought
And
it was
he
an
like
Like he thought it was Alakir.
He thought it was an Alakir because I had a flame tongue totem sitting down already that he had chosen to ignore, and he thought it was an Alakir, and he thought he was gonna lose, and he spot conceded, and he was like, "That was a mistake," and I was like,
lightning strikes twice.
it was just one of those things like. He just didn't. Like taking time, as we say, to stop and smell the roses. Like pausing in Hearthstone makes you play better. Like, and I realized through this little shaman excursion, because I heard Wicked Good say, you really have to think about your placement. You have to really, really think about your placement. It's like, yes, sir, I'm going to be a good student, and I'm going to play shaman to my bestest, and I'm going to really think through all the plays. And so I thought through the plays, and it really did slow me down. And I would sit there and go, no. I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. Let me try it. What about this? What about this? What about this? And I would go 2 or 3 proceed, and all of a sudden I start winning game after game after game after game.
Yep.
And then I start noticing that my win rate goes up. I feel better about it. I'm making actual decisions as opposed to just kind of clicking and idly moving cards back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I wasn't getting mad. I haven't sworn at the game in a while, and things like that. You know what I mean? And those types of things
had to replace
like
my phone in a month.
Yeah. My iPhone 6, which is slowly becoming out of date, still surviving and chugging along and playing games and not pitch. Although I did throw my phone at the dresser the other day, and not being a good example for my kids. I was sitting there playing a game. Guy got like the luckiest thing ever, and I was like, pfft, I chucked my phone at the dresser. My daughter's like, "Why'd you throw your phone?" I'm like, "Priest." And I was like, "Daddy shouldn't have thrown his phone. He was wrong. Shouldn't be angry like that. I'm not gonna play Hearthstone the rest of the day."
All
that
right.
kind of thing.
Punish himself.
But I think we should get out of this.
Yeah.
I
We're gonna
enough.
keep going. Also, we got some really cool lore moment brought to you by a community member this week, actually, right, Eve?
Sweet.
Yeah. Is that how you pronounce it? How would you pronounce it?
What was it?
Schwal?
I'm not
Schwal?
saying Schwal.
Me too. Okay,
Schwal.
Schwal.
Yeah. Schwal
Schwal.
actually, I can speak. Reached out to me in the chat. We have one called Lore Talk in our Discord that's specifically for like questions and discussion about lore. And he said, "Do you know about the lore behind the Spellstone cards?" And I was like, "What? What is this? I haven't heard about this before." And I guess all of them together have flavor text
Yeah,
that makes a long poem.
it's really cool.
What? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. And then I read it and I was like trying to figure out, and I'm like, no, this does not link up with any known World of Warcraft lore. This is an original
Hearthstone lore.
Hearthstone lore, but super cool. Like I mean, there's a certain amount of things that you could just kind of go, well, this is this and that is that in World of Warcraft, because they have the same, like they have murlocs, they have
Right.
satyrs and things like that. But this story that you can piece together through all of the spellstones is original Hearthstone. And I asked him if it was okay if I kind of credited him for pointing me in the direction, and then read it on the show. And he's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I wrote it down and am
Here we
ready
go.
to read it to you if you would like to listen.
Take us away.
In ages old, when ancients broke, Azari of the Legion spoke. To tempt the mortals, gems of power, the weak succumbed, their souls devoured. A purple stone Azari carved, for dark hearts craving, power starved. The first to bow, the warlock Rin, embraced the darkness, slew her kin. The trolls of old embraced the gift, a jewel of black, for daggers swift. No party lasts who finds the stone. Those wielding it soon stand alone. A stone of blue, embraced with glee by Murloc lords beneath the sea. Soon numberless they swarmed the shore, first 2, then 4, then more and more. To dwarves of stone the demon called, with promises of might enthralled. In grasping greed they found their doom, forever bound in mithril tomb. An emerald stone for Tauren hands, who sought its strength to save their land. Their tribes now lost, their rage released, who's hunting now and who's the beast? In ancient woods elves fought the curse, the demon's shadow to disperse. But hatred raged and frail souls turned, now horned and hooved, their forests burned. A diamond, white, this stone, the 8th, a precious jewel for those of faith. A whispered prayer restores the lost, but none among them know the cost. The final stone undid its master, spun into wards by nameless caster. Azari wailed a savage roar, now sealed in nether evermore.
Yay. We killed the demon,
Chill-
but my deck's
chills,
still
ladies and
gone.
gentlemen.
Damn it.
Chills. Chills, ladies and gentlemen. Chills.
So
love
Rin
it.
and Azari are both not in World of Warcraft at all. I mean, Rin is a warlock. Warlocks are in World of Warcraft, and Azari is a what are they
A
called?
demon.
Pit Lord.
He's a pit
Pit
lord, yeah.
Lord
Yeah.
Demon. Yep. The
But
Devourer.
yeah,
is his
neither of them
title.
are in World of Warcraft. So that's, and I know that when it says the elves one, now horned and hooved, that
Satyrs.
refers to satyrs.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's so cool.
I just thought it
Also,
was
it's really
amazingly
cool that we got a little
well-written.
bit of a peek behind the backstory of Rin the Disciple for someone who basically slew all of her people, for whatever that is. 'cause
Yeah,
she's not a
slew her
Warcraft
kin.
fan.
And I mean, kin could refer to other warlocks, or it could even be family.
Warlock, family, clan,
Yeah.
town, city, doesn't matter. Like all of those things can apply to kin. It's a very broad term.
Mm.
I thought
That's
it was
exciting.
really cool that when they talked about the black, a jewel of black for daggers swift for the third line of the poem. I think that's talking about the onyx spellstone, but it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
interesting that the onyx spellstone looks like a necklace, but it kind of looks like in the poem wording it could be placed on the hilt of a dagger. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
So what does the Onyx one do again?
Every
Kills a minion.
death rattle minion will kill a random minion on the enemy team, and the death rattle minions you play will buff up the count of it from 1 to 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Right. So those
It's-
wielding it
it's like an
stand
assassinate.
alone.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And
pretty
it's
cool.
interesting that the Emerald Spellstone was made by Tarans. I thought that was pretty interesting. Tarans are the Minotaur-looking race, not the traditional orcs that you have played in Hearthstone lately.
Yeah,
the
so
elves.
they turn into wolves, I guess. It says who's hunting now and who's the beast. So it's almost like a werewolf kind of.
Yeah, it's
lore.
almost like a Taran Druid-esque feel that they gave the Spellstone, but yet they gave it to Hunter.
Hunter.
Because it looks like they're trying to save their land, like when Mulgar was attacked, or the not the Mulgar, sorry, what's the desert? Not the Badlands, the other one, the Barrens. The Barrens.
The Barons?
Gotten attacked because kind of a reference to the PvP thing and Crossroads always getting attacked by Alliance people. That's really funny. But I had a really funny, interesting thing for you guys this week, lore related, somewhat, but mostly function. Something that I've noticed that we have never really talked about, and that is the 4 elements within Shaman and why totems are their thing. So in the Shaman class in Warcraft was not just the thing that I liked the most, but I played the most hours of any PC game, I think, before Overwatch was in World of Warcraft, and I played a Shaman almost exclusively. And I played him in a lot of the stuff, but they've gone through a bazillion iterations. But the thing is, in their abilities as Shaman, they have the 4 elements they control: wind, earth, fire, water, right? And
yeah, air would be wind, yeah.
Yeah, wind, air. Wind to air is the same thing. Earth, fire, water. So the idea that they've spun within the Warcraft scheme and how they have interpreted this ancient philosophy of the 4 elements to fit the fantasy lore is that water has to do with some form of mana regeneration or something to do with magical replenishment. Okay? And that's how the totems function in the game. So you have the Mana Tide totem, would just replenish your mana in a certain area or for your party, depending on which expansion you played. There used to be where you had to be standing. You had to actually stand within a certain sphere or area of the totems to get the benefit of them, which I thought was a very cool function until they started making them raid-wide, and I thought that was boring, but a lot of people thought it was great.
Because nobody
quality of life
ever
thing.
stood next to the shaman, and it always
Shamans
made it
got
kind
super
of
frustrated
limiting,
because people were
right?
stupid. Yeah.
They're like, stand over here. Get
Well,
some
it's super
healing,
limiting
get
in
some-"
high mobility fights, so shamans were just never invited. So it was like you either have to have this added layer of difficulty that was really fun and interactive, or you just don't have them in your party and you can kind of do the same amount of damage without having that crux that you have to rely, or not the crux, but the crippling aspect of them. Okay, so that was the mana tide, or the water. Earth is typically healing and protection. So the earth totems would give you some kind of healing. Healing stream totem is an earth totem.
Would it be
and-
shielding? Didn't they give you like a bit of a shield?
Stoneclaw totem
Like
would
a-
be
like
like a
a-
taunt, like a tank.
Yeah.
The earth spells would be more of the shielding, Eve. I think that's what you're thinking of. But the totems in themselves would be more of the healing aspect.
Okay.
And then you had the fire totems, which are offensive, damage. The searing totems would just shoot little pew pew thing of lightning, or sorry, of fire, just attack. Some of them would actually like brand your weapons to deal extra fire damage when you hit something. They would also do an area explosion of fire damage. You want to nuke a big group of people, you could do that. And then the last one was air, and air was wind fury and movement speed and spell casting speed, or just raw spell damage. So they had all of those different things, and they went through a bazillion iterations. But Wind Fury basically meant that all of your weapons, if it procced or activated, you could hit something, and then the Wind Fury had a chance to activate. Which means if you hit something with your axe, Wind Fury means that the attack would spin around the weapon and hit it again. And that's how we have Wind Fury as attack twice in Hearthstone. I thought that was just some really cool stuff that maybe if you didn't really realize that before, even played Warcraft, it's just a really interesting game mechanic that has kind of translated from game mechanic to game mechanic and not necessarily got like a story backing, if that makes sense. it's half lore, half function, if that makes sense.
I think it informed a lot of how they made them. Yeah, definitely. The way you describe it, it speaks a lot to the totems that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And Manatide totem would be broken if you got your mana refreshed.
It would allow you to be
So-
better than a druid at what they do if you just got a mana totem at the end of every turn, or got a mana crystal at the end of every turn instead of drawing cards. That would
Or
be
if
pretty
you
crazy.
put it down and it refreshed your mana or something like that.
Man.
Yeah. So now you
Yeah.
just get a card at the end of the turn, which I
Not
mean,
saying that they're
it's so-
limiting design space to say that they can't do that, but that's something that if you guys are like, why did they give this to Shaman? Well, it's because it fits within the lore and how they function in Warcraft. So
Yeah.
just some things, food for thought if you guys are
It's
wanting to get
true.
into some card design competitions. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is people were always, maybe not always, but some people are probably wondering, why can I only have these 4 totems? Why is it not like only searing totems as 1/1s like Paladin, or why isn't it just giving me O2 taunts or healing totems or air totems like all the time? Well, the difference is in Shaman, you could only ever have 4 totems down at a given time, and it was 1 for each element. So you would actually not only be limited to 4 totems, but you could only be limited of 1 totem per element.
Yeah.
So if you
couldn't
wanted to
double
have
up
a
or
taunt
triple up.
totem, like in the game, to just like if you're running around and some big thing attacks you, you can drop a Stoneclaw totem and it'll like get the attention of the guys so you can escape. Or it'll slow them down, or like throw some vines in the ground, make it difficult terrain. They can't run very fast and you can sprint. Something like that. Or sometimes there's this one that like wraps up vines and literally roots them. That would be the earth totem that you choose, and then you could choose something else. So you could like root them, and you could drop a searing totem and start shooting fire, and then you could drop an earth or another water totem to get some of your mana back while you're running and kiting this thing around. And then you can use a air totem when you get at range to kind of reduce the time that it takes to cast a spell, and you can flick a spell back really fast and then keep running. So that's the idea. And within Hearthstone, they had to make it really balanced, so they could only do one, not only just reflect one aspect of the kit, but just like kind of fulfill the lore. And even though they technically have 2 earth totems, it's okay. Like the healing stream totem. I need to look this up. I could be wrong. I think the healing stream totem is actually a water-based totem, so I could be wrong there. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. Healing stream is water. Water is like, yeah.
Yeah, they make it almost a light thing, the way that it looks like.
Right.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
a holy light thing, which is not Shaman at all.
Right.
It's completely.
Right.
They should
But
have changed
I
the
get where
coloring
they
on
went.
it, but
Yeah.
But yeah, this could maybe give you some ideas on how the shamans deal spells. Like wind-based magic and offensively is lightning. So that's why they have a lot of lightning spells. And fire. Fire's their other main source of damage. And then when they want to heal, what do you see? You see something with water. Healing rain. You have, what was the other heal that they used to have? Oh, they have the Hot Spring Guardian. Hot Spring
it's like
Guardian
it
is
splashes
water.
you when it heals you.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
It's always water.
And
Oh,
then when you
yeah,
get like a
that's cool.
protection thing, it's earth-based, earth totem, fire elemental.
Earth elemental.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's just some cool stuff for
It's
you
really
guys to
cool.
think about. I know there's a little bit more function, dipping my toe into Eve's lore-based thing, but not without her being here. Okay, so I know a little bit, not much.
I
but-
approve.
Ooh, Rob's a cross-disciplinary host. Oh yeah.
At least this week.
I think it was a good idea the way that they did it, though, because if you already have like 2 of one kind of totem out, then you have odds of getting one of the other 2, and it's not just like completely who knows what you're gonna get every time. You can start to.
Also, I like that they don't limit you
anticipate.
for those elements so that you can play cards like, dang it, I got the healing stream totem, so I can't play my Manatide. Like, that would really suck from a gameplay point of view.
Right. Yeah.
Or I have a searing totem, so I can't play Flame Tongue. Can you imagine that kind of a restriction in Shaman? That class would never get played.
Yes. No. That would be punishingly difficult. Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to wrap up. We got an update from Grant on Patreon.
Oh yeah, we got a new Patreon supporter this week. Big thanks to Chris B. He signed on to show his love and support for what we try to do the best of our
Good
abilities
train.
week in, week out. And so much thanks and that we'd like to throw your way for supporting us. Do you want me to talk about
Yeah, just talk
supporting
about
the show
Patreon,
further? Okay. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can head on over to patreon.com/villainschosen and drop us a cup of coffee a month if you want. Or you can come to twitch.tv/Velen Chosen's podcast and hit the sub button. We are Twitch affiliates,
And we
and
set it up. Whoop,
we
whoop.
set it up. It's there.
Thanks,
the button
man.
is there. And but another really great way to support the show is to head on over to iTunes and leave us a review.
Which we have 2 this week, and I'll take the reins now.
Yes,
We have
you need
2
to.
iTunes reviews this week, and they are from 2 of our co-English speaking countries. I'll just put it that way. We have one that is got a really great title that I had a good cackle at from the user named Electric Mick Again. Which I have no idea what that means, but the title's great. It says, "Don't read this, listen instead." I'm not going to. I'm going to read this and listen sometimes because I have to. One of the best Hearthstone podcasts out there, even if they occasionally discuss Japanese crows and centipedes that release centipede attracting pheromones upon death. A great range of topics discussed freely with an easy conversation will feel like all good podcasts. At least gives you the sense that you are in a lounge room with some friends. Finally, as a weird lore researcher nerd, the lore segments are great. Team, hit me up if you need research assistance. Highly recommend. Sending the love from Sydney, Australia. Thank you so much.
That
for
was
that
a
review.
scary episode. I agreed. Grant and I were just
We were like aghast.
Rob's like, look it up. Look these things up on the internet. Grant and I are like,
We're like,
no.
Nope.
No.
I
Don't
will say
inflict
that
your
I saw a
centipedes on
different
us.
insect this week. It's just a giant
No.
wasp. Just a
Okay,
giant wasp
all
was in
right.
one of my
Quite
camping
a-
classrooms. They're called
you can handle that.
suzumebachis, and they're about, I don't know, as long as your finger. All right, the next one is from
We're
a
all
good
like,
friend of ours that we've shouted out in the show, Captain Correlator. A review long overdue. This podcast is one of my must-listens every week. 3 hosts combine different points of view, produce a show that brings strategy, fun, and lore in a complete package that few other Hearthstone podcasts can compete with. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Cap. I have a special shout-out again
Aw.
for him, not just for being a iTunes review, but doing so from the very limited iTunes reviews that we've received from New Zealand. And Cap has been my DM for our Dungeons and Dragons group that was purely online, spanning 4 time zones.
Nice.
And he's been incredibly patient with me and my wife, like learning it and trying to find a good balance for story and metagaming, and trying to like find something where we don't really know how the game is going to play, but also being extreme fans of really big homebrew skilled players like Critical Role on Twitch with Matt Mercer and the voice actors that do that. Side note, the voice actors of this are like the voice actors of like Ragnaros the Fire Lord and Nefarian. That's Matt Mercer, and then you've got Liam O'Brien, who is the voice of Illidan Stormrage. Like, you've got a lot of Warcraft representation on this cast. And if you followed E3 with The Last of Us 2, Ashley is she's playing an Osamir Barbarian, and she's the voice of one of the 2 main leads of that game. So they're extremely talented people. And he's just been really, really great for us, and I can't thank him enough. And also shout out to Smiley Chris for being a fantastic fighter and bailing me out from getting murdered in our last session. I was 1 or 2 hit points away from getting slashed by a dragon to death in 1 hit. So it was very scary. But anyways, thank you guys so much for your iTunes reviews. It's a great way to support the show. Even if iTunes is being a butt lately with how they allow you to find podcasts, and seemingly iTunes reviews don't really do much, that doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, and they'll fix the issues by which the community is raging at them. So they've been like the pinnacle thing for iTunes reviews for a long time, has been like the best way to find and support your producers for free.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that this change is permanent. So please keep sending them to your favorite creators, not just us. It's a plea from one creator to the other, and we've all been kind of doing this kind of a thing in the Hearthstone and the Overwatch scene. We're just like, forget what iTunes tells us, what they're doing. Just keep sending the reviews. Maybe eventually they'll listen to their creators like they should, and we'll get that changed. Eve, do you have any other updates regarding your casting from last week on UHL?
They've gone into the finals now, So a lot less people, a lot more available casters. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I'm going to be called on to help out at all.
Mhm.
I am up late at night, while as other people are on different timelines or fast asleep. I'm like, it's only 7 o'clock. So I am available for those. So that might happen. But I did actually have a little bit of a teaser.
Ooh, spicy.
Ooh.
I have
like
gotten
teasers.
together with Storm Rage from Blizzlet and Daring Alkaline from The Daring Reporter, and we are making a new podcast. It's
Whoa.
called The Lore Knights or The Knights of Lore.
Cool.
Interesting.
And we're going to be making a podcast about video game lore.
So
I'm going
not
to
just
stay far away
Hearthstone.
from I'm going to stay far away from Hearthstone and World of Warcraft because I feel like that is what I do with Valen's Chosen. But we're going to be talking about lore in many, many different games and also taking requests from people who would like to know more about lore. And the first subject I'm going to be tackling is Destiny.
Sweet.
Sweet.
So as soon as we
Sweet.
know exactly when the episode's going up, we will tell you when our first episode is going out. And I'm super excited to be getting together with them, making a new collaboration, and doing what I love to do, which is talk about lore.
It's cool.
So please look forward to that.
Yeah, they. If you guys have any more questions, you can hit up any of the following hosts that she had mentioned on Twitter, and likely in Discord as well.
Yes, we're in all
Um,
the Discords.
Eve, where else can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at LoreMasterEve, and my BattleNet is LoreMasterEve, hashtag 1974. Except for there's no E between the T and the R, because I couldn't fit it. I had to cut
Great.
out a letter.
You can find me on the Twitter sphere at WatchmanHS. You can hit me up on BattleNet, Watchman hashtag 1140. And I always forget to mention this, and this is going to sound like I have not mentioned this for years, but I actually am a gamer sensei. I actually have, I'm on board with them. I'm allowed to teach via their website. So if you want to take any Hearthstone lessons, how to play from zero, how to play at a higher level. Now, I'm not a top 100, 200 legend player, but I have made legend a few times. And if you want to just get better at your game in a environment where it's very my profession is being a teacher, and I try to extend that into video gaming a lot. So if you want to do that, you can go over to Gamer Sensei and just search me under Watchman. That's how you'd find me, gamersensei.com, and you can do that. And Rob,
If you guys want to find the show, it's at VelensChosen.com. If you want to find anything else, links to the Discord, all that, you can tweet at us there on Velen's Podcast, or you can find us with the website link on our links page. You can definitely hit up our Patreon if you want to get access to those lore moments between 1 week to 2 months in advance before they hit the live feed, depending on what happens on the backlog. And you can follow me on Twitter with the tag NotRob. You can also talk with us in our Discord frequently about anything you'd like. We have an Other Games channel if you want to talk about something else. And we also have, I also have another podcast called Omniclab. We just posted a show last week with a guy named Can Asian, who is a very talented teacher for Zarya, a long overdue
he's
rework.
awesome.
And
That dude's awesome.
he was very, very good to hang out with, and we're definitely going to have him back for a map guide in the future because he was just such a good guest at explaining things. We're working on some things in the backlog to revise some stuff on Omniclab. I won't spend more time on Valens to explain it, but just letting you guys know we are going to tighten up the show quite a bit. Eve, you have one more thing?
Yeah, I couldn't remember whether I mentioned on the last show that there is a new lore moment in for patrons only. It's about Ner'zhul. It's kind of the origins of the Lich King from the very beginning. A lot of people don't know that Ner'zhul was actually the first Lich King, not Arthas. So go check that out if you're a patron, and if you would like to,
Lich King.
if you'd like to listen to it earlier than who knows, a couple months, then become a patron, even if it's only for $1, and you can have access to that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know that these things can be a slog to kind of get through, and you guys just hitting the subscribe button means a lot to us. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys again for listening to 144, and we'll see you guys next week. And remember, not all who wander are lost.
You can hanging out high by Hada and
I just played the soundbite from Andrew screwing up and flubbing his audio. That was great. We miss you, Andrew. Come back sometime.
I gotta get that guy
Hang
back
out.
on the show. I want to do a trivia thing with him. That
Dude,
was
he
Fun.
killed
Are
it
we gonna
last
have to
time.
wait until like another 100th episode?
well, 150 is coming up.
150's coming up. 6 weeks.
That's a perfect excuse to get Andrew back on the show. And I can vouch for Grant. Grant does not yell at you. He does not get impatient. He's very kind. He's very demonstrated boy. He says, "Oh, why did you make that?"
Yeah, I get my pipe out and my smoking back. Yes.
Walk me through your thought process.
That's true. I like the Socratic.
Once I can figure out why you did it, I can tell you why you're wrong.
There was when we were. I remember a while back, a year ago. Eve and I were playing stuff, and I would be like, "Okay, let's." And Eve would just make the play. I'm
Did
like,
I miss it?
"What? Why did you do that?" And she was like, "Oh, shouldn't I?" I'm like, "But why did you do that?" And you're like, "I don't know. I just did it."
I have to tell you, I love
played too
playing this
fast.
outro without you guys knowing because you don't know when you're speaking and when things are happening. And when Grant's like, Eve just made this play and I was just sitting there and then the Doomsayer comes in. Did I miss it?
Our timing is impeccable, sir. Yes.
I love not telling you guys that we're playing the outro music because that happens like every time without fail.
Yeah, you got to get your jollies somehow, I reckon.
You can consider my Jimmy's rustled. That's a good way to end the show right there on the blooper reel.
I still play too fast. It hasn't changed.
That's probably why you're. I'll be honest, Steve. I think I've been playing too fast, and that's why I've been stalling out at rank 3. Because I've been like way successful since I've like slowed my turn base by like 30 seconds.
I didn't get really good at Hearthstone until I started playing slow stuff. Because you can't go fast.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, I'm going to close the live stream. You guys can stop your recordings. Thank you guys for tuning in for the live stream. I know it's late for some of y'all. We peaked at, I think, 11 or 12 earlier, but we're down to 5. Thank you guys. Bye.
Nice.
A lot of people
Decent.
quiet.
Yeah, not really chatting. Maybe